All right. I'm feeling really good today. I can feel it. We're merging. I can feel it. Anyways, I've been thinking on, of course, this topic or of the corporate structure that's being used to dominate the whole planet. And another aha I had is the reference to the giants being in the land. So when it was time for the Israelites to cross in to the promised land, which is a metaphor for the next paradigm, the people that were unsure said the land was filled with giants. And they didn't believe they could overcome the giants, okay? What are the giants of today? What are the corporations? They're made of, it said, a body of people, right? That are like a great giant edifice, just like those idols of men in Daniel. Okay, so now there's a really powerful lesson with David and Goliath that I believe is extremely relevant for us. Okay, very relevant for us and what we're facing is Daniel. So first of all, not Daniel, sorry, David, sorry. This is in 1 Samuel. Now, the first thing that's important to note is that Goliath was considered to be a giant. So let's hypothetically say in this case, Goliath represents the corporations that are dominating the global land now, okay? And then David is a shepherd, okay? So this is, very symbolic of, Jesus, okay, the great shepherd. But interestingly, it says that they were doubting David's ability to do this, to take on Goliath, because all the men had been subjected to the propaganda, all the negative propaganda spewing out of the mouths like the frogs from Goliath, putting them down, and the men were only putting their hope in the physical strength, their armament, their shields, their physical might, and they were faltering, they were doubting. And then David said, well, hey, man, I'm a shepherd, but when I'm out there, a bear comes and I fight off the bear, and a lion comes and I fight off the bear, and I defend the sheep. This is significant because in the book of Revelation, it speaks of these beasts, or this great beast that's like a lion, like a bear, okay? It's all connected. Because the systems that are existing today that are dominating the world have become purely animalistic and destructive and are predators utterly consuming humanity mercilessly, okay? Now, something got to note is in verse 40. It says when David decides to go out, he says, I'm not going to use the tools, the shield and the helmet that the other men use, because he was getting his power from a different confidence. So he took his shepherd's staff and he went and got 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's bag, in his little pouch, and he had a sling. And he approached the Philistine. And I thought, wow, because you see, Goliath had 6 fingers and man has 5. And the fact that he chose 5 smooth stones from the brook, okay? So, the water is like the water of life, it's very interesting. And so he took these little stones and he went before David, and then also the fact that they were saying that their flesh would be fed to the birds of the sky, well, that's also in Revelation, okay? That terminology is used, that the enemies of God would be, basically consumed up. Their bodies would be consumed up. So then, what happens it says, David put his hand in his bag, took from it a stone and slung it, and struck the Philistine on his forehead. Okay? And killed him. But there was no sword in David's hand. Okay? And then he ran to the Philistine and he took the sword that the Philistine, that Goliath had, and used it to cut his head off. Okay? Okay. Let's reflect on this. Because again, in the book of Revelation, it speaks of the believer receiving a pebble, receiving a stone that has a new name on it that no one knows except the one receiving it. And the fact that David's pebble struck Goliath in the forehead. What if David and Goliath is a metaphor for our choice? What do we choose to be part of? Are we going to live according to a trust in God, a trust in creation, a trust that there is something greater than what we see physically? Or are we going to be part of the giant? Are we going to be part of Goliath? Are we going to be part of that heartless construct? What I am suggesting perhaps are these non-living edifices that are being used to dominate the world right now. Now, what killed Goliath was a strike here. This is our higher mind. This is our intellectual, this is what distinguishes us as a species. So it's a battle for our mind. Because also, what did David do? He cut the head off of Goliath. Okay, that could be a symbol for all the misleading propaganda that has been fed to us for so long. So this struggle between David and Goliath could also represent the Christian or the believer's struggle. It could be a symbol for us collectively as a species going through, again, this paradigm change and recognizing the battle is for our mind. Because what was the main tool that the Philistines and Goliath was using was fear, negativity, intimidation. Okay? What do we got to deal? This is what the battle is about. But because of our love, just like David, he was a shepherd. He loved his animals. He loved the sheep, which are a symbol for us, humans. And then he saw these beasts coming to predatorize them, and that motivated him to action. He cared. This is what's happening in the world. We are caring. We are got to rise up. But our tools might seem insignificant. What does that pebble represent? A pure thought. A pure thought going right in to the part of us that's been conditioned to participate in the corporate giants. Because remember, what I really am wondering about too is the fact that the giants had 6 fingers, and then in Revelation, this mark of the beast, and it's associated with this number 6 all the time. And I know there's tons of information out there, and I'm sure other people have got it worked out in really interesting, creative ways. But then I was thinking, well, the one thing it would seem is that there's an evil influence that seems to be slightly supporting these distorted, exploitive entities. So we call it, the devil, the dark side, the Luciferians, whatever it really is, the Satanists. It's like they've just gone too far, and there's this secret help, that extra digit that keeps seemingly giving them strength to manipulate the physical, because fingers are for the physical, right? And that seems to be what they're doing. They're influencing us through the physical. But because we're connected to something higher, through our heart, There is a connection through our heart, because the law of God can be written on our heart, this knowing, this inner confidence, this inner certainty which David had. And through it, he was able to face his own fear, because that's what he had to do. And he did, and he aligned himself with what he believed was the power of all that is good in the universe, God, as he understood him. And he won. Let's use our pebble, okay? Because again, a living stone strikes the feet of the image in Daniel, pebble given to every believer, and David used a pebble and struck right in the forehead, the higher mind. Do not let them control us through this propaganda of fear. We can overcome, and we choose to, because we love life. I hope you enjoy this one.